Don's going to watch some Mecole Hardman highlights and come on here in a couple weeks and tell me that he rules.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host, Nick Schreck, and joining me tonight from very, very far away, sunny California, it's Nick Walsh, who has been your host and quite arguably the face of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Walshy, what is up?
Not much, Schreck. It's been foggy all day today. My neighborhood gets a little bit foggy, but it's sunny in my mind. It's sunny. It's sunny in the eyes of the listeners because we are getting closer and closer, hopefully, to a football season. Hopefully, to not issues with the football season. But yeah, I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Schreck?
I'm good, man. I mean, we talked about it pre-cast. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a scare today with some statements going around about, possibly playing NFL like they are with the NBA and kind of being in that bubble. And you asked the people to follow the rules months ago, and it doesn't seem like that they've done it well enough for NFL to get here, Walsh.
Yeah, no, it's definitely frustrating. If we're not trying to make any grandiose statements, but please wear a mask, please keep distances of people, please be cognizant of other people's lives and safety. I hope that's not a controversial statement to say.
Nope.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. We're going to keep chugging along as if there will be a 16-game NFL season. Until we're told that there won't be. So keep on riding with us, and we'll keep chugging along.
Absolutely. And for those of you keeping track at home, we're recording here June 19th. It is a Friday night. This will be coming to you Monday morning, the 22nd, if my math is correct. But either way, Walshy, like you said, we're going to try and put as much good willpower as we can out into the world. And fortunately for you and me, big episode here, the AFC West preview is on tap. If you guys haven't already listened to the first four previews so far, Vinny and Walsh dominated those. So click back, take a look on your local podcast host, and listen to those as well. But if you want the AFC West, you want some goodness, in part one, guys, we are talking Chiefs, Broncos, and then we'll be talking Chargers, Raiders on the backside. And Walsh and I each have one of those teams covered on our own. I'm always happy to talk Chiefs. Walsh is always happy to talk Raiders, even after an upsetting draft. But we'll get there. I don't want to get you fired up quite yet, Walsh. But you ready to kick things off on the first half of things?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's jump right into the Chiefs, dude. Lead us off.
Let's go. Our Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, they win the division. They win the Super Bowl. It was a huge year last year. They're keeping a lot of the core together, right? And we've talked about this off air before, you and I, and it's a big win for the Chiefs as far as I'm concerned, because they're not, with COVID and all this stuff, teams are not together like they typically would be, and as we're projecting them to be moving forward. But they keep especially that offense together. Patrick Mahomes at the helm. They obviously add Clyde Edwards-Helaire here, Damian Williams, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, lots of weapons, but the offense is going to kind of keep just clicking along. And I think without going right off the bat, player by player, Walsh, we're going to see a lot of the same stuff we saw last year from the Chiefs offense. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. This is a team that offensively and defensively, they've kept the vast majority of the team together in terms of starters. You have a couple small changes on the offensive line, but I think you could, outside of losing Stefan Wisniewski, I think you could look at the offensive line as potentially upgraded. And I think you can only really look at the offense itself as upgraded as well, because they didn't lose anyone and they added Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So yep. I think that continuity is going to play a huge role, like you said, in this offseason. And we can expect the Chiefs to pretty much pick up where they left off with one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL and an offense that can really score points from anywhere on the field at any time in the game. I expect them to continue rolling through this division and rolling through the league.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, obviously, you win a Super Bowl, you're excited going into the next season no matter what. But from a fantasy perspective, trying to put my Chiefs bias aside, fantasy points galore. And quite frankly, we haven't gotten there yet, but the Broncos, obviously, some excitement there. The division as a whole, Walsh, is not the AFC West of old, as many of us kind of used to look at it as a bit of a shit show, to say the least. But Patrick Mahomes coming off the board as QB1, 6th pick in the second round. We both are pretty much on the same page on, I think, how we feel about paying up for QBs. So let's look at it from the perspective, I guess, of everybody else, right? You and I think I could speak for you here, would rather wait on a QB and not pay up for Patrick Mahomes. Is that fair? Yeah,
he's going way too fucking early. But, I mean, either him or Lamar Jackson should be the first quarterback off the board. I think that's a pretty fair statement. I don't really have a strong opinion on which one that you're going to take there. But sixth pick in the second round, you're going to take Mahomes before you're going to take Kelsey? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane because you're also looking at here Clyde Edwards going pick 8 in the second round, literally 2 picks behind Patrick Mahomes. I mean, obviously we can look at the draft board as a whole in a little bit, but I'm going to pass on Mahomes as well at that price. But if you want an elite guy and you're going to do it, you're not going to listen to what we're telling you anyway. We are believers in late-round quarterbacks. But he will produce. The Chiefs are going to put up a shit ton of points, and there's nothing not to love about Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and I've said it in the past too. Like, if you see Mahomes slip to like the 4th or 5th round, like I'm not opposed to that. Personally, I wouldn't probably take him until the 5th. But like, if you're in a league where people are like us and quarterback does slip a little bit, and you don't need to take him in the 2nd round, like, sure, grab him in the late 4th or in the 5th round. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I would get excited about as well. I mean, look, I've been there last year's draft for us. We watched him fall down boards, and he obviously won a pick or two before my pick in the draft, and I was ready to pay that price. Some Chiefs bias, understandably, played into that, but again, it is what it is. But yeah, I would be fine if you took him there and moved away from your late round strategy. But do you care about the backup QBs here? You got Chad Henne, Jordan. I'm going to mess up the rest here to me.
Jordan Teamu, he was pretty much the second best quarterback in the XFL behind the current Carolina Panther PJ Walker. I had a brief stint playing XFL DFS, rip to the XFL. But yeah, I only added that in there because I thought it was funny.
Well, I had to note it because I knew if it was in the outline that there was some relevance, and I don't know why I'm surprised because I shouldn't be that you were playing XFL DFS. Did you
got to do something in the off season? I think I ended up up maybe like $30 on like the however many weeks there were. Like, I wasn't like playing like a ton of money or anything like that.
Just a little bit, just a taste.
But I ended up slightly up on it. Just It was just something to do for fun. I'm very happy now.
You're up, baby, right? You just needed a little taste, right?
Yeah,
you got a little
exactly.
Taste for the game.
I had a brief stint as a Korean baseball daily fantasy player a couple weeks ago. I had a stint as a UFC daily fantasy player. I'm currently back on the golf, which has been fun. So you just need something to pass the time, really.
Well, if you're living your best life, man, don't ever change. Don't let anybody ever try and change it.
Right. I'll try not to, Schreck. Thank you.
Let's talk about the running game here, Walsh. Unfortunately, Clyde Edwards did not get a chance to play in the XFL, but super, super exciting here for the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about this, post-draft and everything else where the Chiefs obviously take him in round 1. He's going to have a ton of opportunity in this offense. Price tag aside, I'm super excited as a Chiefs fan. And I think Andy Reid is going to give him that opportunity to shine. But fuck, does that price tag scare the shit out of me?
Yeah, I'm right there with you because, he was a first-round pick. He is a guy who is widely considered he was considered the best all-around type of back in the draft. A guy who could run in between the tackles, run outside, catch the ball out of the backfield, pass block, do all these things that you need to do to be a 3-down running back in the NFL. Maybe not the best at any one single thing, but like, I'm scared because he's a rookie in the COVID offseason. And also because if we run quickly through the rest of these running backs, you've got Damian Williams going at running back 31 at the beginning of the 7th round. But then on the roster right now, you've still got Darwin Thompson, who was a hyped rookie last year, didn't really do anything. Darrell Williams, who did actually produce when given a shot. Elijah McGuire, who has been a productive running back for the Jets in past seasons. And DeAndre Washington, who literally was PFF's running back 12 last year. Like, he was legit a good running back. So, I'm also a little biased because I've watched DeAndre Washington as a Raider for the past several years. But, he's good. He's not a bad running back. So in this, and not every single one of those guys is going to be on the team come, week 1 of the season. But, there's a lot of depth and a lot of capable guys in there. And we know that an Andy Reid offense doesn't necessarily need a superstar running back. It just needs someone that's capable. So with this amount of depth there, you said you're scared with that price tag. Like, what do you think the floor is for Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
You gonna ruin that?
I mean, let's see. I do have a couple numbers on him. I'm trying to see Damian Williams last year, 111 rush attempts, 500 rushing yards, and 5 TDs. Yeah, that my wife is currently playing with Milo in the background. For those of you tuning in, that would be his toy sloth that is squeaking in the background. So if any of you do need toy ideas for your chocolate labs, I would highly recommend a pet sloth because mine loves his. I did get a little thrown there. I'm not going to lie to the people. Walsh, I think he ends up being the guy by the end of the season. Where does he end numbers-wise? I don't have anything for you. I think he ends up being the guy. I don't know if it's halfway through. I think, again, it's going to take him time to get acclimated. No, COVID, how much preseason time do they actually get together? I think they didn't spend the first-round pick to not get him mixed in, and it ultimately becomes the Clyde Edwards show in 2020.
I could definitely see that. I could see him. The comp that I thought of earlier was 2019 Miles Sanders, where he sort of came into like a somewhat crowded backfield, and I think Edwards-Helaire has a bigger chance to take over early than Sanders did. Yeah. But he sort of came into this crowded backfield and then worked his way to become a feature guy later on in the season, and was really a very solid fantasy asset late in the season. So, I think a little bit, safer than Miles Sanders. But again, Miles Sanders was going like 5th round last year, and now you're having to spend a 2nd round pick on Clyde Edwards-Helaire for potentially someone who, might not be a starter in week 1.
Correct, and for what at that price you need a sure thing, right? Like if I'm spending that price, like how do I not get? I'm just pulling up my ADP, but how do I not take someone that I know surefire a starter? Because again, I can't worry about the second half. I can't worry about the playoffs right now at that price. I need to worry about winning and having guys that I can depend on to start the season. As I pull up those ranks, of course it's now halfway loaded.
I actually just grabbed it as well. So, I mean, like, he's going in drafts before, and this is in PPR, he's going before Mike Evans, before Kenny Golladay. Like, wow. I mean, this is going to be a theme of the offseason that running backs are just going egregiously high this year relative to wide receivers. But, are you going to tell me you're going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire ahead of Mike Evans? I could not imagine that.
No, you can't. I mean, and being running back 14, like, it wouldn't be crazy for him to be a running back 1, right? Like, even in a 10-team league, like, if you went wide receiver heavy early or something, like, you could end up with him as your freaking running back 1 at that price. It's crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at it, like, if you take Michael Thomas as like the 4th overall pick or the 5th overall pick or whatever, that is the running back tier that you're looking at, which is terrifying.
It's scary. But
I mean, again, you getting into draft theory and whatnot, you got to use mitigating strategies there, and then just like take a whole shitload of running backs and hope a couple of them hit. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting year for the Chiefs backfield. I mean, I don't really know exactly what to expect. I think the odds on favorites scenario is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire takes that backfield. and makes it his, and gets somewhere from 60 to 70% of the touches within the backfield, and is a good fantasy asset and a great offense. But there are a lot of other scenarios that this backfield takes as well.
Sure. I mean, and Walsh, Damian Williams, obviously first pick in the 7th round, running back 31. I mean, for me, I'm not going to touch the running game with a 10-foot pole here because, again, I do believe it becomes Clyde. I just don't know at what point it becomes Clyde.
Yeah.
So for me, even at Damian Williams at running back 31, I'm personally not going to play that game because I think there's too much uncertainty on a hot offense where there's points to go around. And I'm just not confident that Damian Williams will be the guy. So for me, I'm avoiding him at that price as well.
Yeah, I don't love that price. I mean, looking at the guys going around him, it's there's not a ton of sure things there. So if you are taking the strategy of just kind of throwing darts at running backs,
sure.
I've thought about it a lot, and I'm thinking ideal draft strategy for me this year is get a high first round pick, take an elite running back, then take wide receivers and maybe a tight end for like 4 rounds, and then take like 6 running backs in a row and just hope 2 of them hit. So in that scenario, like Damian Williams, I think makes sense for that kind of strategy.
Sure.
But yeah, it's all going to depend on a lot of different factors, and obviously we'll know more going forward. But yeah, it's a little tough to get excited about Damian Williams.
Yeah, you can't get amped up, and I get it. Not going to be a sexy pick, but like you said, if you're going to throw some darts, sweet. Because even if he is the guy for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, you're happy with that ROI. Well, so let's talk wide receivers. Tyreek Hill, wide receiver number 3, first pick in the 2nd round. My fucking man. I was going to name my child Tyreek if he was a boy, but unfortunately it is not. So Tyreeka is on the table, but my wife is a little hesitant. So we're still in discussions. We're going to negotiate that out, but maybe I'll figure something out. But Tyreek Hill, absolute stud. I have no problem with the ADP. I have no problem taking exactly where he is. He's a wide receiver 1. He's going to get fed. The only red flag I think you can really throw here is a possible injury flag between him and Travis Kelce for being studs, but we can't predict that shit.
Yeah, I think wide receiver 3 makes sense just relative to everything. I think with Julio Jones getting older and with DeAndre Hopkins going to a new team and all these sorts of things, I think it makes sense. I think it's a little bit weird, but it definitely makes sense. So we'll see how it goes. He didn't finish that high last year, but he also came off the injury early in the year. So you can never. Tyreek Hill is just a guy where you can never rule out him having a 90-yard touchdown catch at any point in a game. So that's definitely worth something. I have a hot take about these later wide receivers, if you don't mind.
Hit me. Go.
So everyone is calling the Mecole Hardman breakout year. Yep. I think it is the comeback year of Sammy Watkins. And
doubling down on your boy Sammy. Go ahead.
I am doubling. And it's doubling within the context of our league, but I didn't actually like Sammy last year. He just dropped really hard in our league, and I thought he was better than Courtland Sutton. But anyway, so Sammy Watkins last year, wide receiver 56 in terms of points per game for PPR wide receivers. He had that huge week 1, but basically did nothing. However, Sammy Watkins did have 8+ targets in 7 games. And one thing early in the offseason, I was looking at catchable targets, or catchable ball rate. And this was data from PFF. And I was kind of sorting through it. I didn't do anything like super concrete in terms of analysis with it, but I kind of came up with sort of correlations between ADOT and correlations between catchable ball rate and like what you could sort of expect and that kind of thing. So there's Milo. So Sammy Watkins' catchable ball rate was 63.64%, which was really low relative to his average depth of target at 9.46. For some comparison's sake, Tyreek Hill's average depth of target was 71.26%. I'm sorry, that was his catch. Let me start this over. Tyreek Hill's average depth of target was 13.01 yards, but his catchable ball rate was 71%. Sammy Watkins' average depth of target was 3.5 yards lower, but he had an 8% lower catchable ball rate. Like, his catchable ball rate at a lower ADOT should be higher than Tyreek's at the lower. So I think Sammy Watkins got unlucky with Pat Mahomes throwing him shit that he couldn't catch. And, like, that's not going to be a popular opinion, because when you don't produce in a Pat Mahomes offense, the take is Pat Mahomes is great and so the wide receiver must suck. I think Pat Mahomes didn't help out Sammy Watkins as much as he did the rest of his wide receivers last year. And I think the math basically says that unless Pat Mahomes just sucks at throwing shorter balls, which I also don't think is true, like, Sammy Watkins is bound to have some sort of positive regression this year in terms of how many balls are thrown to him that he's just able to catch. So, you know, they signed him again. They're going to play him. They didn't sign him to that contract to not roll him out there. I do think Mecole Hardman's going to have, a bigger role than he did this past year. But if you're looking at those ADPs with Sammy Watkins, second pick in the 12th round, wide receiver 54, and Mecole Hardman, wide receiver 44, fourth pick in the 10th round, give me Sammy Watkins all day on that.
I mean, like you said, Walsh, it's not a popular opinion. One, just make sure you never say anything bad about my Pat Mahomes, okay? Because we were treading some dangerous water there. So it's never his fault. Remember, the receiver is bad.
Right.
So I'm with the consensus there. But two, I mean, I'm fine with both of them at either of those ADP. I get, like you're saying, Sammy Watkins 2 rounds later. I mean, again, there are plenty of stats and things you can look at that obviously I'm preaching to the choir to you, but for everybody else that supports that, right? Sammy Watkins doubled the targets of Hardman last year. He came through in the clutch when the Chiefs needed him. I do think Hardman, I don't know if he has his breakout, but I definitely think it's a step up. Again, at some point I become concerned about there's too much to go around between Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman, and Travis Kelce, and I'm not even going to throw a bone to Mr. Pringle or DeMarcus Robinson out here. But I'm fine with both their prices. Mecole Hardman will probably I mean, I do like what you're saying, Walsh, about Sammy Watkins being the better ROI here at 12.2 versus Mecole Hardman at 12.4. Hardman's going to continue to rise way more than Sammy, so you're right. He's going to be a better value come draft day.
Yeah, I think the hype on Hardman, because you see it on Twitter even like now, that people just being like, I just watched some Mecole Hardman highlights and like, this dude is a baller. And it's like, yes, he probably is. But like, I don't know. Like, it's I watch some guys that I think are ballers and they suck. People looked at Chase Claypool doing backflips and were like, holy shit, this guy's going to be great. It's I don't know. I'm less reliant on this guy looks like a baller and more reliant on like, I think this guy just got unlucky based on the percentages last year. So you're telling me you're a numbers guy and you don't believe the hype of everyone who's not playing by the numbers? Yeah, Don's going to watch some Mecole Hardman highlights and come on here in a couple weeks and tell me that he rules. But anyway.
I watched some highlights, Walsh. You don't know what you're talking about. Trust the gut, baby. Trust the gut.
You got to.
That's I was chuckling to myself over here when you said positive regression for Sammy Watkins, right? Because I feel like if you had one word tattooed on your body, it would probably be regression.
Yes.
And when we talked about Tyreek Hill, he's pretty much like the exception to the rule of regression, right? Like you said, like at any point he can be the 91-yard touchdown and it fucking throws everything that you expected and statistically showed out the window.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, here we have Sammy Watkins where we think it's going to go the other way. Just a little personal fun for me watching those two. And I know it kills you I know it kills you when the stats don't support what you know should happen.
Well, the thing is, we have the sample size on Tyreek Hill to say that he is an exception to the rule. Like the first year or so that Tyreek Hill produced above expectation, I was like, this guy's going to fucking regress. And then he didn't. And like at that point, I'd be dumb to just like keep saying he's going to regress because like obviously he's the exception, you know?
Correct.
But maybe Sammy Watkins is also the exception just on the negative end. It's definitely possible, but I'm
doubling down.
Bet against it.
Keep doubling down, Walshy. He was your guy last year for the bet, and now he's your guy here on the Chiefs. Tight end number 1. Wide receiver number 1. You heard it here first, folks. That's Walsh's call of the season. You don't have any interest in Demarcus Robinson or Mr. Pringle, right?
No. There's no reason to go that far down the depth chart.
Outstanding. And at tight end, Walsh, there's this new fella in town, Travis Kelce. What do we expect for him?
Yeah, I think he's going to be tight end 1 again. This new Travis.
Travis.
There's not too much to say about Travis Kelce. He's actually going 4 picks later than he was last year. Which is nice. He's going back into the second round as opposed to mid-second round. You know, I think that's fine. I think that's fair. He's going to be great again this year.
Are you in on the tight end early thing again?
Not entirely sure yet.
It's early. It's only June 19th. It's okay.
Yeah, that's one I haven't really made a decision on. I mean, Kittle's going exactly where he did last year, and I was in on him last year, so I feel like I should be in on him this year. But I think I got to take a look at the take a broader look at like the late round opportunity and that kind of thing, and kind of go from there. So, okay,
totally fair, Walsh. Again, we'll touch more on that in August as we hit draft strategies and whatnot. A lot can change from now to August.
Do you like Kelce there? Do you think you would take him there, or are you just playing or spinning the wheel again?
Yeah, I'm just right now. I'm just kind of stoking the fire because I know you like to dabble with the tight end early thing.
Yeah.
I go back and forth every year, right? Because I don't love spinning the wheel, but I typically spin the wheel because I get terrified that my running backs are going to suck, or because it like you said, it's the game, right? If you pay up at tight end, you have to roll the dice someplace else. So do you stack 6 running backs? Do you stack 6 wide receivers? I always toy with the idea. I just don't know if I have it in me to pull the trigger. I like the idea of it. I just don't know if I could actually do it when push comes to shove.
That's definitely fair. It's a tough one to do, but we'll see how the rest of the offseason goes.
I like to play it safe, Walsh, and unfortunately sometimes that doesn't always work out. But alas, here we are. Do you have anything else on the Chiefs here for the people?
No, let's jump to the Broncos.
All right, Walsh, let's take a quick break. We're going to come right back and talk Denver Broncos.
Have you thought about trying sports betting but aren't sure how it'll go? Our friends at FanDuel are giving away a $50 sign-up bonus at letstalkfantasyfootball.com/FanDuel-sportsbook.
All right, guys, and we are back to talk the Denver Broncos. AFC West coming hot and heavy. Walsh, let's kick things off at the top. New offensive coordinator. What do you know about him?
Yeah, so they replaced Rich Scangarello, whatever it may be. They replaced him with Pat Shurmur, who's the former Giants head coach. Shurmur historically has used a lot of 11 personnel, so 3 wide receivers out there, 1 running back, 1 tight end, which I think is something you can – when you look at their draft and what they did, it's like, oh, yes, of course, like this is the personnel that they're trying to run here. The running scheme should primarily stay the same. They were pretty much a zone blocking team before. And while they've changed the offensive line around a little bit, it's – more or less kind of gonna move forward as it was. So, we'll see what happens here. Shurmur's a guy who historically has gotten his quarterbacks to exceed expectations. And I think with the draft that they had and what they've done in the offseason and with Pat Shurmur at the helm, there's reason to be a little bit optimistic about Drew Lock. I don't know if it's as optimistic as his ADP is, but there's reason to be optimistic about it.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Lock coming off the board, QB 16, 5th pick in the 11th round.
I was shocked when I saw that. I was like, like I had to do a double take when I saw QB 16 for Drew Lock.
He's coming off 2 picks after Baker Mayfield, 1 before Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. It's not what I expected his ADP to be when we were compiling the notes and everything for the outline here today, but I'm optimistic, right? I think for that offense as a whole, as you kind of hit, there's a lot of young guys with a bunch of talent here on the offensive side of the ball, aligned with some of these changes here, where there definitely could be some points. It's going to take me a while to fully get on board with saying Melvin Gordon as a Denver Bronco. That's a little bit tough to swallow, but they have so much talent everywhere, Walsh, that it's right to be optimistic. Do I have an interest in Drew Lock in fantasy football? No, I do not.
Yeah, and I mean, drafting him at that time, I think one of the important things to look at with late round guys, if you're drafting 2 quarterbacks to just start one and, start them based on matchup or whatever, sure. But in terms of drafting a quarterback to start early, he starts the season with the Titans, who have a pretty good defense, then the Steelers, who have an excellent defense, and the Bucs, who also have an excellent defense. It lightens up a little bit after that. There are definitely stretches of this season where I could see Drew Lock being a fantasy relevant guy, but drafting him outside of, a 2 quarterback league or that kind of thing, not really in my game plan. He's a guy who's firmly in the streamer pool for me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, and you always talk about it when we talk about during the weekly podcast of DFS options and some of these other guys, but definitely someone we'll keep an eye on. A new name here to the offense, Walsh, Melvin Gordon, obviously joins the Denver Broncos.
I thought you were going to say Jeff Driscoll, but fine, we can talk about Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, sometimes we have to skip the big names and talk about the unknown guys. And I know you're a big Driscoll guy, but I can't let you drone on about him tonight. I'm sorry I've stolen you. But
that's okay. That's fair.
Melvin Gordon, somebody I'm actually excited about. I think that his potential, particularly in PPR leagues, I think is fantastic. I think he's got a good shot to be the second leading receiver on the team behind Cortland Sutton. I think if they get him out wide, and we know historically, right, that young quarterbacks look to check down, and I think that option is going to be Melvin Gordon. Philip Lindsay is going to reap some of those rewards, but I think Melvin Gordon is a guy who is going to be worth the ADP.
Yeah, I mean, look at running back 17, 4th pick in the 3rd round. That's not that bad for what you should be expecting from Melvin Gordon. It's one of those where I think, unlike Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we have a pretty concrete understanding of what he's going to be doing, and I think that's getting about 60% of the running back touches, and maybe Philip Lindsay gets 30 and Royce Freeman gets 10, or however you want to split those guys up. Fine, whatever. I'm not too worried about it. But Melvin Gordon, they signed him to a big contract. They clearly want him to be the guy. And the 2020 win total for the Broncos is 8. So we don't expect them to necessarily be good, playing from ahead or behind all that often. Melvin Gordon's a guy who's produced in the run game and in the pass game in the past, despite the fact that Austin Eckler stole the show as a pass-catching running back last year. Melvin Gordon has historically been great in the pass game. I believe he's gotten 80 targets in a season before. So we're looking at a guy who can sort of do it all, and a guy who is going to most likely get the opportunity to get somewhere from 15 to 25 touches in every single week.
Yeah, never thought I'd say it, but I'm in on Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, we're big time Melvin Gordon guys this year, I guess.
Wild. Don will be thrilled. Don will be thrilled when he tunes in. Philip Lindsay, Walsh, do you believe he's the guy, the second tier guy? Do you have any interest in a quote unquote handcuff or second guy in this offense? or not so much?
Nah, I mean, Philip Lindsay's super talented, but just like he's not playable unless Gordon's injured, you know?
Yep.
So I mean, you could maybe if you have him on your roster and like he's a bye week, 1 week fill-in, you know, that kind of thing where you just kind of throw him in there and close your eyes and hope he gets a touchdown, which, you know, everyone has to do once in a while. There's no shame in that. But I don't think he's anything more than that until Melvin Gordon gets injured. Okay. If Melvin Gordon gets injured, you know, I'm not predicting a Gordon injury.
No, but it wouldn't be the first or last time that Melvin Gordon got banged up. All right, so that means we're out on Royce Freeman, which I think was easy to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk wide receivers, Walshy. Cortland Sutton was wide receiver 18 in points per game, nearly a 30% target share, coming off the board, wide receiver 21. And I'm not exactly sure. I got to take a look who's going off the board around him, but that feels kind of cheap to me.
Yeah, I think it feels about right.
Okay.
You know, he's coming off the board currently in between T.Y. Hilton and Keenan Allen. Tyler Lockett's also in that area with DK Metcalf. You know, there's a couple people in there who I think it's about right. The reason I say that, and the reason I included that target share in you know our notes is that I don't think there's a chance he gets to a 29% target share this year. I know he's their number one wide receiver, and that the offense should be better. And I think the efficiency can come into play. I think his consistent usage can come into play. But that target share is going to drop a little bit, and he's going to have to rely on, you know, just being a good NFL wide receiver more so than the heavy volume this year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, when you pitch it as the decline in target share there, I guess maybe he's priced a little more fairly. DK Metcalf, T.Y. Hilton, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett is his rough counterparts at this point in the draft.
I mean, there's points that you can make for him. Going back to my Sammy Watkins argument, he's another guy who his catchable ball rate was low based on his ADOT. He was at 65% with an 11.4 ADOT. So he's another guy where he could benefit from some better quarterback play for sure. And we'll see if that happens. We'll see if Drew Lock takes that step forward. But yeah, I think he's priced a little bit fair. If anything, I think you're right. If anything, he's a little bit low.
Okay. Jerry Jeudy. This one hurts you, right? Just a little bit.
Yeah, it hurts a lot.
It opening old wounds, but he should have been a Raider, right? And that's just what it was.
I mean, they had the spot to take him. I was really pumped because my mom's name is Judy, and I was going to buy her. Like I don't know if they do jerseys for football, but even if they don't, like I was gonna buy her. Like I was so convinced the Raiders were gonna take Jerry Jeudy that I was gonna buy her a Raiders Judy jersey, even though her name is Judy rather than JEU. I thought it was close enough, and it would be a funny joke, and she would think it's a great gag. And also I thought it was the correct pick for like football reasons for them to make. But
just statistically the right pick.
Yeah. And you know, they took Henry Ruggs, who we will get to in part 2. That's what we in the business call a fucking teaser. Yeah, we're going to talk about Henry Ruggs. No, but you know what, the Raiders loss and is the Broncos gain here, and they get an excellent wide receiver. I was a little bit surprised, and not to jump ahead too much, but they in the second round they drafted KJ Hamler, who is a 5'9", like shifty guy, speedster type of thing. I assumed when they took Jeudy that Jeudy was going to be the slot receiver because he did play a lot in the slot at Alabama, and he can also play outside. He can play all over the field because he's such a good route runner. But I thought the idea was to ease Jerry Jeudy into the offense, like really get him into some easier route running situations and some soft zones and that sort of thing in the middle of the field, make him the slot guy. The pick of KJ Hamler in the second round makes me think that that's not the case because he profiles as a guy who is basically just a slot guy. He's shifty, he's small, he's fast, should excel with the ball in his hand in short area situations, pick up yards after the catch, that sort of thing. And so that means Jerry Jeudy's going to kick to the outside. Now, this is where sort of the Drew Lock at quarterback 16 thing makes sense, where Jerry Jeudy's going wide receiver 38, 6th pick in the 8th round. If you think Jerry Jeudy's that good and Cortland Sutton's going as high as he is, then yeah, like Drew Lock's probably quarterback 16. I don't know if Jerry Jeudy's worth that pick in fantasy.
No, I mean, we know nothing about Jerry Jeudy at this point, right? Like, we could watch highlights, Walsh, but, do the stats support him to be there?
I think there's a good chance KJ Hamler is like a more productive receiver in the rookie year just because of the ease of the targets that he's going to get. Well,
and that's a gamble you're willing to take especially when he comes off the board undrafted, right? Versus an 8th round pick here on Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And, we talked about how Pat Shurmur is going to be running out three wide receivers at like pretty much all times. So if these are the 3 and these guys are basically getting the same snap rate, yeah, I don't see the huge difference between Jeudy and Hamler in terms of end of the year production. And Judy's going in the 8th round and Hamler's going undrafted. So
can't beat free, baby. Can't beat free. Free is for me, Walshy. And I agree with you here. I'm not going to spend on Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton, again, I'm okay with his ADP. And Hamler, again, we'll see as things shake out here in the offseason. But we do love free. Let's talk the tight end spot, Walshy. Noah Fant, flashes, only 2 games at more than 5 targets, unfortunately. You got to assume that it's the sky is the limit. He's going up from here with this offense, right? I mean, the hope is that they almost have an embarrassment of riches, I think, on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, you would assume, if you buy the rising tide lifts all ships type theory within fantasy football, then the Broncos offense is going to be better. Noah Fant's going into his 2nd year. He should be better than he was last year. I was saying it with Sutton, I have trouble predicting where the targets are going to go in this offense. So, you would think he's going to get more than the 67 targets he got his rookie year, but I don't see him breaking 100. So what are we looking at? We're looking at 80 targets. We're looking at 85, 90. Where are we thinking there? It's difficult to tell.
You and Vinny were talking about this on the last podcast where it's it wasn't, I don't remember who we were talking about specifically, but you talked about it's not even more than 10 points a game, right? And I wish I remember which one it was, but
I don't remember at all.
I was just listening to it yesterday. I was retuned in. But regardless, it was the tight end spot, and I'll have to go back and find it. But you guys were kind of it's the same kind of concept. You're well, what are we talking about? Right? The way it averages out, even if you increase the targets, it's almost negligible. The difference you're actually going to see. And for Noah Fant here, it's probably the same thing.
I also want to bring up the tight end that they drafted, Albert, and I'm going to fuck this up. Okwegbunam.
Better than I could have done.
Okwegbunam. Albert O, however you want to pronounce it.
Albert O.
4th round pick out of Iowa. If Iowa sounds familiar for the Broncos, it's because Drew Lock went to Iowa. So this was Drew Lock's college tight end. Interesting little tidbit there. He also has a very similar athletic profile to Noah Fant, where he is, a guy who can stretch the seam a little bit, can get downfield, one of the more athletic pass catching types of tight ends. So it seems weird to draft a guy with a redundant skill set to Noah Fant, particularly when you're bringing in an offensive coordinator who historically runs one tight end sets. So I'm confused by all of that. And, it's very possible first-year tight ends rarely do anything. I think the likeliest thing that happens is Albert O does not have any sort of crazy first year. But it is interesting that they brought him in. Maybe it was just sort of hey, Drew, here's this guy that you used to like. Maybe it was just that. Man, there's nothing more to it than that. But it's peculiar a little bit to me.
No, you're right. I mean, like you said, especially for a guy that runs one tight end sets. I got to think that they did it for him, right? You got to think they did it for Drew. I would tend to think, again, the same as you did, maybe it's not this year, but maybe long-term, or not even long-term, but next year, it's more his show than Noah Fant's. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, and with that sort of thinking too, they spent a 4th round pick on Albert, and they spent a 1st round pick on Noah Fant last year. So
yeah,
you know, it's
this is why we're not GMs, Walsh.
It's just puzzling to me. You know, I think Noah Fant's ADP of tight end 13 in the 11th round is fine. He's not a guy that I am particularly going after this year.
Yeah, you're not targeting him. But again, if you got to spin the wheel and end up there, could be worse, especially with some love all over the place for Drew Lock.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Walsh, you got anything else here on the Broncos?
No, looking forward to the second half, and you know, thank everyone for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got big things coming. Walsh is amped up. He's going to talk some hometown Raiders, and I'm sure he'll have a hidden surprise or two in there. I feel like you're always ready to lure me in with something like, yeah, this guy, you know, I like a lot of things. And I'm like, yeah, man, I love him. And you're like, well, let me tell you why you're wrong. And I have a feeling I may hit on one of those with the Raiders. But that's okay, Walsh. I'm here for it. I love it. And, you know, I'm just pumped to be back. I'm talking fantasy football with you guys. And we're keeping our fingers crossed for the 2020 season, guys. Put some good juju out there in the world. And with that, guys, I am Nick Schreck. He is Nick Walsh. We are Let's Talk Fantasy Football. We will catch you on the flip side.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.